Let me read to you from this piece today that was, it's by Seamus Brennan, and it's called The Absurdity of the Blame Trump Campaign. It was linked on Real Clear this morning. And the piece is entitled The Absurdity of the Blame Trump Campaign. And it's interesting to read, an alternate viewpoint. Well, here's what he says. Many Trump candidates, including J.D. Vance, Ted Budd in North Carolina, and almost certainly Kari Lake and Adam Laxalt, potentially Blake Masters, and possibly after the runoff Herschel Walker, will have won their races in highly competitive swing states, despite most of them being outspent by tens of millions of dollars. Where Republican candidates faltered, it was not just those who were chosen by Trump. Numerous strong House candidates handpicked by Kevin McCarthy lost races that the consultant class had expected them to win, including Leslie Vega running against Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, Rhode Island Republican Alan Fung, Myra Flores, Cassie Garcia on the Texas border, and many others. And then goes on to point this out, that Trump did not actually endorse some of these candidates until they had already announced. He says Trump's endorsement of Doug Mastriano, the disastrous gubernatorial candidate for the GOP in Pennsylvania, did not come until Mastriano had the nomination already all but secured. He didn't really push Mastriano on Pennsylvania primary voters. The same was true in New Hampshire, where Trump did not endorse Don Bolduc until after he had already won the primary. So that's the other side, right? Are we being too hard on Trump?
Yeah, I think they're fair and sound points in that. Look, I mean, it was a disappointment up and down the ballot. Democrats did really well in state legislatures, right? Where we didn't see any of these MAGA versus non-MAGA fights. But the folks who are at the top of the ticket matter, and where Trump could choose, he chose poorly. And JD, I think, is a bit of an exception because he was the MAGA candidate who was really wanted Trump's endorsement, who was actually the best candidate in that field, at least among the other potential alternatives. Josh Mandel was just terrible, just absolutely terrible. And then there was a businessman who's briefly running ahead, who was also terrible. And you've looked at the debate, you think,
Ohio?
JD's the normal one, because he's good, he's rational, he knows what he's talking about. So that was an exception, but it's true.
The other thing is, if I can just spend 1 second on JD, I've spent a lot of time with him. I did a long piece on him for NBC. I interviewed all of his family members, was out there with him in Ohio, with he and his wife, and so on. His story is so compelling. Hillbilly Elegy is a must read. It will break your heart. It will make you cry. It will make you stand and cheer for him. The amount of stuff that guy's overcome in his life, to wind up at Yale Law School, to wind up working for Peter Thiel, to go back to Ohio, back to his home, try to help his local community. I know he had to say Trumpy-like things to get the primary, through the primary and so on. But my impression way over here is J.D. Vance is a good man. He's had a lot of struggles in his life, and he did what he needed to do to get elected. And it alienated some people. But I think anybody who spends a long time looking at J.D. Vance sees a good person. I really do. Yeah.
So this is what I want to pick up on from that pull thread is he did what he needed to do to win that nomination. And I have a lot of time for that. I mean, you're an ambitious person. You think there's a good reason for you to be in the Senate. You're going to do good things with it. And Donald Trump, the endorsement of one man can make the difference whether you're there or not. You're going to try to get the endorsement of that one man, right? And almost everyone tried to do it, right? Even the more non-MAGA candidates, like Pennsylvania, David McCormick was trying to get it. But this is where I think the biggest problem comes with Trump. And it's certainly true is that piece picked up by RCP notes, Mastriano was going to win one way or the other. Bolduc was going to win one way or the other. And Trump kind of came in, was getting on the train late. But he created this environment where people are really ginned up about the election, where stop the steal is sort of a matter of whether you believe it or not, makes you a heretic if you don't believe it.
That's right.
He did that. And if he hadn't told untruths about the election, if he weren't obsessed about it, you'd have a primary electorate that was less of those things as well. So he's created, I think, an unhealthy environment for the party in general.
Well, I heard you talking about
broader and deeper cases.
I heard you talking about a step before that, and I've read this elsewhere too, where in a way Trump kind of chased a lot of I don't know what you're going to call them, normal Republicans. They're not really establishment or whatever, mainstream Republicans out of running in the first place. Like there were some obvious next choices for Senate in places like Pennsylvania, like Arizona, like Georgia. And a lot of these like really beloved Republicans who could have run were like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing it. I know I'm not ready to kiss the ring. And I know exactly what that's going to mean for me.
Yeah. So like a great example, Doug Ducey in Arizona, successful 2-term governor, won by double digits his reelection, would have won in the Senate in a romp. I mean, it wouldn't even be an issue. You could put that one in the Republican column, and didn't run because he's been governor. He's not going to grovel in front of, to Trump. In fact, he had this contention with Trump over certifying the election. So he's just not going to do it. It's just not. So your first tier guy, he's not even consideration. So then you get an argument over second tier guys. Is Brnovich better or is Blake Masters better? I would argue Brnovich is better. So I would kind of characterize Masters as the third tier in that race. And that's the guy Trump puts over the top. And that was true in a lot of other states. Pat Toomey, he's been in Congress and the Senate for a while now. Maybe just time for him to do something else personally. He would have left regardless. But he had counties in Pennsylvania, Republican county groups denouncing him, in resolutions. If he had any inkling that he was going to run again, he had to worry about whether he's going to win a nomination. And again, he just wouldn't have been an issue. I mean, he would have had a 5-point race or something, but he would have stopped Fetterman. So again, I just think Trump, he won in 2016 against a lot of expectations, including mine. He did a lot of good things, 3 Supreme Court justices, other things. Then he lost a winnable race in 2022, and then he took the party down a rabbit hole that led nowhere, led to lots of futility, led to actual bloodshed on January 6th. And it's just time for the party should just say they don't need to be a never Trumper. They don't need to have my view of him. They just say no thanks, sir. You did a lot. We appreciate it. Now we're going to build on what you did. With someone else. That would seem to me the rational alternative. It seemed to me so since November 2020, but I've been wrong a lot, and things that I thought make sense turned out not to make sense and not to happen. So we'll see.
Well, it really is. It's like you fall into a relationship with somebody, you get married, you actually have kids, and then things get really toxic and you realize this is no longer good for me. It doesn't mean it wasn't good. You got your 3 beautiful children. Right. You're not sorry about the union and how well it worked out, but in many relationships there comes a time when you realize it really is time to move on. And that's what a lot of the Republican Party is saying now. Even party faithful to Donald Trump are saying that. Can we talk for a minute about McConnell? Because some of Trump's defenders, again, we're going to have one on the program in just a little bit, Rick Grinnell, who I love. But a lot of Trump's defenders are like, we just stop blaming Trump, who worked very hard to get a lot of these people elected, who know he did not tap into his $100 million war chest, but he raised a ton of money for the candidates who ran and won this past cycle. And he did tons of rallies and he gave of himself, and he's not a young man, and he was out there working it. And Mitch McConnell sat over there in the Senate, and rather than being helpful to a lot of these people, just was like, candidate quality. And they felt that undermined candidates like Blake Masters and maybe J.D. Vance too. And, we could go down the list, Oz in Pennsylvania. And that he also spent $9 million in Alaska, where Lisa Murkowski didn't get the Republican primary nomination. So she ran as an independent. And the more Trumpy Republican running out there was not to McConnell's liking. So he spent all this money to help get Lisa Murkowski reelected, who, Trump fans might call her a rhino. She's obviously much more of a squish than like a Ted Cruz. Yeah. And they're mad. They're saying, why don't we spend that money on Blake Masters or on Adam Laxalt? Races that we knew the whole thing was going to come down to.
Yeah. So no one's judgment is flawless. And, McConnell, the problem there, overly conventional, right? And overly concerned with protecting incumbents no matter what. That accounts for the millions spent on Lisa Murkowski. But that said, he raised, I think it's hundreds of millions of dollars. Literally, it might be the most money raised by any person or entity in a midterm ever, I believe. And there's some choices that I wondered about at the time. I was told about an internal poll that had Baldock, turns out it was a BS poll, but that had Baldock down like 2 weeks before the election. And the very same day, McConnell's SLF, his group, pulled out of New Hampshire. Why are they doing that? Is it just out of spite? Right. Is it just a bad judgment? Turned out it was the right call, right? Because they weren't going to win New Hampshire, and that was plowed into Pennsylvania, where
how do you know? Chicken egg. Well, how do you know? Maybe if you take that $9 million that he gave in the Alaska race and gave it to Bolduc, New Hampshire would have been tighter, or he would have won.
Yeah, I just don't think nothing was saving Bolduc if he was losing by 10. Blake Masters might have been more spite, because JD was critical of the establishment, but then called Mitch McConnell, talked to Mitch McConnell. Masters didn't play that game, so I think you can say that was spiteful. They still should have been in Arizona.
Do you ever wonder if your vitamins are working? Clinical studies show Healthy Cell's new ingestible gel technology called Microgel delivers maximum nutrient absorption, 165% more than tablets. And it tastes great. It's hard to make vitamin liquids or gels taste good naturally, right? But Healthy Cell products are the best tasting pill-free supplements on the market. Go pill-free and get up to 15 pills worth of nutrients in one ultra absorption gel pack, saving you money and time and giving you effective doses. Take a single great tasting gel pack at home or on the go. It's great for travel, and you can mix it into drinks or blend it into smoothies. Old-fashioned tablets, capsules, and powders contain synthetic other ingredients like binding glues, flow agents, fillers, coatings that could irritate your gut and are just kind of gross. Plus, this is made in the USA. Visit healthycell.com/Megyn, Megyn, or use that code Megyn for 20% off your first order. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.